And it is day 343, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In just about 23 days, it will be 1 year since Russia invaded Ukraine. Here are the latest from what's happening. The Ukrainian army has released drone footage purportedly showing an artillery strike near Bakhmut on Russian military positions. It comes as Russia claims its forces have surrounded Bakhmut and are closing the ring around the city. But Ukraine claims the invaders have suffered heavy losses. The city has been the scene of fierce fighting for months, with Russian forces and mercenaries from the Wagner Group locked in a grinding battle with Ukrainian forces. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have had to carry out evacuations from the besieged city of Bakhmut. One of those lucky enough to leave alive is a 6-year-old girl who was separated from her pregnant mother. Irina was found lying with her grandparents in a rundown apartment building in Bakhmut. Ukrainian forces, having trudged through snow, reached Irina while artillery fire echoed in the distance. She was eventually recovered and driven to the nearby city of Slavyansk to be reunited with her mother, Elena Dalchenko. Danichenko said there were still about 200 children living in Bakhmut. Security forces say they are trying to reach people there to convince them to evacuate. In the meantime, Russia has warned that longer-range rockets reportedly included in an upcoming package of military aid from the United States to Ukraine would escalate the conflict but not change its course. Government spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters today there are no plans for Russian president to hold talks with U.S. President Joe Biden, who is already putting together a $2 billion package of military aid, which include longer-range rockets for the first time. Such rockets would allow Ukraine, which has said it plans to retake all of its territory by force, including annexed Crimea, to strike deeper into Russian-held territory. Putin sent tens of thousands of Russian troops into Ukraine in February last year. He has said the operation was needed to protect Russia's own security and stand up to what he has described as Western efforts to contain and weaken Moscow. Joining us for more on the invasion, VOA's Anna Chernikova joins us from Kyiv. Anna, it's good to see you. Talk to us about how Ukrainians feel about hearing they may or may not be getting the F-16 fighter jets from NATO allies.
Good evening. Well, I should say that for the moment, this is one of the main discussion within the society, within the Ukrainian officials. And if we look back a couple of months ago, it was similar discussion about tanks. And at that point of time, the tanks were also a kind of very, unconfirmed, and it was really hard to believe, at least here in Ukraine, that actually this would happen. So now we see that tanks are coming. Similar situation is happening now with F-16. So it's definitely something that, this is something that is very desirable for Ukraine, and this is something that would definitely help Ukrainians to fight. And especially to fight at this stage of war, because today Ukrainian intelligence came with a new report and new highlight that this next upcoming months of February and March might be one of the most active phases of this war. And of course, but of course also here in Ukraine, everyone understands that Ukrainians would need some time, even if this decision is on the paper or is decided that the aircraft would be provided. It is still, Ukrainians would still need some time to learn how to use it, because Ukrainian army has a very different type of this equipment. So, but still, I should say that situation looks very similar to the tanks discussion, and still Ukrainians have this hope, of course, that the result would be similar to the tank decision. But again, it's really very tough, to discuss this at this point of time, because of course we don't have enough information and enough confirmed official data in order to say if this would happen or not. But Ukrainians hoping for this for sure, and everyone understands that this would help a lot in this stage of war.
And Anna, apart from, the weapons coming to Ukraine from Europe, the US is also putting together, I believe, $2 billion military package. Do you think that all of this, the Leopard 2 tanks, that, they would go a long way, for Ukraine in this fight?
Well, definitely. This is crucial for Ukraine, again, for this upcoming stage, active stage of war. It is definitely something that should allow Ukraine to counter, implement the counter-offensive operation. And this is not a secret. This is kind of, this is something that Ukrainian officials, especially Ukrainian military officials, highlight all the time. But again, of course, we can only comment on what we know and what we know in terms of the numbers of this equipment, because what's important, and also Ukrainian armed forces is saying a similar thing, that it's important that this is coming in a particular amount in a particular time in order to get ready for this counteroffensive. So Ukrainian forces need a certain amount of tanks and certain amount of missiles of different range in order to proceed with this counteroffensive. So it looks like for the moment, and also according to the packages that are already confirmed and might be confirmed sometime soon, at least this is what is expected here as well in Ukraine. This is something that also demonstrates that Ukrainian allies understand the importance of all this equipment coming at one point of time. Again, we don't know exactly when this time is exactly, so it might be faster, it might be more long term, but I guess that Ukrainian side and allies, they are in a very good understanding of both needs of Ukraine and also time ranges that this supply is needed.
And let's talk about the fighting in Bakhmut. How intense is it really? We have Russians saying they're making gains, and then Ukrainian forces saying no, Russians are suffering largely.
Well, this is the hottest spot, definitely, at this point of time. Just yesterday, I talked to the volunteers who went to Bakhmut a couple of days ago, day before yesterday. They came back. They were in Bakhmut. They were in the city center. They were walking around the city, and they are saying that yes, this, like, you can hear the shooting, you can hear the explosions, and you can hear the fighting. You have to hide. So everything is very, very intense. But the city of Bakhmut is completely under Ukrainian control. Fightings are happening around, definitely. It doesn't look like that this city is surrounded at the moment by Russian forces. So for the moment, what we see, and according also to the reports from the Ukrainian officials and also reports from those who just recently visited the city, that the fightings are happening around in the outskirts of the city. And Ukraine, well, basically Ukrainian defense line is currently lying at the city of Bakhmut. And Russian forces are concentrating most of their force, their best forces in that area. It's important for Russian forces to take control of the city, because the main goal now, at least this is what was announced by President Putin, is to take the whole territory of Donetsk region under control. And without the city of Bakhmut, it would be impossible.
Can we say that all of the fighting is concentrated in the eastern region? Talk to us about how Kyiv is today. How's Kyiv doing?
Most of the fighting, I should say it's east. So most of the fighting concentrated in the east, but also we should not forget about the south. So south of Ukraine, Kherson region, Zaporizhia region, all these territories are quite intense, but definitely Donetsk region is the hottest spot. This is for sure. And Russian forces, as I already said, concentrate their best forces and most of their forces in that area. If we talk about the city of Kyiv, well, definitely no fightings are happening around since Russian forces left the Kyiv region, and what's happening in Kyiv is the shelling. So every time the massive shelling is happening, Kyiv is always the main target, and massive shellings by Russian forces are happening quite often. So the city of Kyiv, of course, has its own scars of this war, and this is for sure. But people are adopting, and I should say that unfortunately people are getting used to the fact that they are living under the sirens, under the danger and constant risk. But the main risk for the city of Kyiv is are missiles and drones. So missile attacks and drone attacks. And this most of the time it's targeting energy infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and unfortunately residential areas as well, because these attacks are happening inside the city.
And it is closely getting to that 1 year mark since Russia invaded Ukraine. We'd like to thank you. We appreciate you talking to us about this, and do continue to stay safe.
Thank you.
Well, staying with the crisis, Polish President Andrzej Duda says the U.S. will probably visit Europe this month, although he was not on one of his itinerary, addressing the issue of delivering F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. The president said Poland was open to dialogue, but will be considering the defense Poland as well. It was answering questions after discussions with Latvian president. And one of Russia's top officials, Sergei Narshikin, has predicted the NATO military alliance that the alliance would fail to inflict a strategic defeat on Moscow despite billions of dollars of weapons and military hardware to Ukraine. Naryshkin, who heads Russia's SVR Foreign Intelligence Service and is a close ally of President Vladimir Putin, accuses upping the ante in the conflict by supplying it with more advanced weapons. Washington has been hesitant to supply such long-range weapons, apparently fearing they could be in attacks on Russia, which could bring NATO closer to the brink of direct conflict. He criticized Washington's latest promise of military aid, saying Moscow had taken note of the expansion in both the volume and range of military equipment being supplied. He said the US and its allies were determined to wage war with Russia to the last Ukrainian.